It was a normal day for when Matsu was walking around in town since it was a sunny day and she had not much to do. But once, when she arrived to the park, she saw this strange car in the distance. She had never seen it before, but when she looked closer, she saw this strange mark on it, or like a symbol. But she didn't pay much attention to it. She thought maybe it was just some custom-made mark on it. So she continued to read, sit there at the park by herself. But after she left the park, she saw the car further away on the street, just driving away. So she didn't pay much attention to it. But there was something about the car she felt was strange. But she did pay much attention to the car though. But one day, when she was just walking around talking to some of her friends on the street, there was something that some of them actually mentioned seeing a strange car that seems to be having a mark on it or something that was just driving around, but one of them managed to take a look inside. It was no driver in the car. But some of them made joke that maybe the driver had forgot to put on the brakes on it and it was just rolling. But one of the friends did actually see that could not be the case because the car was actually on. And it turned to the next corner by itself. But they all said that's not possible unless it's on someone is remotely controlled it. And Matsu said that it's possible, but it's around likely that anyone they knew couldn't do it. Maybe there was some genius like herself, maybe trying some new technology or something. But next time she saw the car, she tried to connect with the car by telepathic, which is that her ability. She can actually access, analyze any electronic devices on telepathic level, but she managed not to control it. But when she somehow connected to the car, she started driving and somehow she connected to it and stopped. And somehow it sent a message to her. It's like she felt a presence inside the car. Like, not a telepathic ways, like someone, if the car had its own mind, its sentient mind. She was very surprised when she opened her eyes and saw the car just standing just only short distance from her. And suddenly, she heard a voice from the car, and the door opened and said, "Hop in, we need to talk." And but Matsu, she didn't first didn't want to believe it. She just hop in a car like it is stranger, or at least. But she saw the car didn't have any driver. But she tried to at least walk away, but the car followed and said, "Please, hop in. We need to talk. I know you entered my mind." By that, he said, his mind. She was right. The car had its own mind. But that's not even possible, she thought. But the more considered from this, she needed to figure out what it caused this to happen. So, even though she did against her own reasonable logic answer, she hopped in the car and it drive slowly on the street. At first it was silent, but then she asked, "Who are you? And what are you?" And he said his name was Wheeljack, and he's an Autobot. He said that he could sense her present in his mind. He asked her how that's possible. He had no idea humans could be able to access someone's mind like that telepathically, especially electronic devices. She explained that she isn't human. She is a Sekirei, an alien being, which it would explain to him though. But then he asked, "Is it more of your kind on here in the city?" And she said there are several. But she said there aren't any other. The others doesn't have the same ability as she has. Some have other powers, others have some different skills. She's only one and or two of other. There's one other who had the same powers as she had. But then she asked him, what is an Autobot? And that would be a little bit hard to explain, he said to her. But I will take you outside town to explain more, further, where we can have more privacy. She didn't want to even go with them, but still, though, she was very curious deeply how about his explanation. Even she just wanted to hop out of the car. She saw that the door was even locked, and he wasn't even driving fast. He was driving at a normal speed, so she could easily open the door and jump out. But she didn't. She wanted to find out what he meant by different surprise, or at least that he won't explain, and learn more about this, and perhaps finding out more about why he was driving around in town, and what the mark meant for. She asked about the mark, and he explained that that mark is represent the Autobots. When they were outside town, maybe 2 miles or 3 miles away outside, when they in a deep forest, he opened the door for her and she stepped out. And she stepped away when she heard a strange sound from him. And he transformed into this huge robot. And he then sat down on the ground and explained, this is my true form. I am Wheeljack, an Autobot from the planet Cybertron. He had asked her what Securay are for kind of aliens, and she explained what she knows about them. And then the same thing, she asked him, where is Cybertron? And where is this Autobot's rest of his kind? He explains that he used to be in a fight against some other of his kind, but they called Decepticons. And they have been a fight for millions of years, which did surprise her really much. But there was something about him that she felt calm. They had almost the same personality, like they were like almost connected somehow. They talked for hours afterwards. There was something about him that she was really couldn't figure out what it is, but there was something about him. He explained to her that during this fight against the Decepticons, he and other Autobots were trying to defeat some of the Decepticons to enter this space bridge. And he explained what it was. Some sort of tridimensional bridge between like a wormhole, or like a it's like a black hole or something, an opening for time and space and time. And of course, she didn't even believe that. But then he showed her some sort of holographic image of it. And that was something that she never expected. And it turned out that he was more a scientist, but also at the same time a very skilled in mechanics and also in science, computer science, and anything. But he was the only one near close to the space bridge during a battle when suddenly a big explosion caused him to fly backwards in towards the space bridge, and just a second later, it closed. And he told her that he had been outside the town for at least for a couple of weeks. He had been scouting the town for answers to figure out where he is and how he ended up in there. He had even tried to send broadcast a signal to the other Autobots to find him. But for those several weeks when he had tried, no answer. So either they figure out he has been transported to a different planet or something, but when he figured out that he was on Earth, but a different one, he tried to figure out what to do next. But that was the happy things when suddenly, one day, when he came in contact with someone else's mind, and that was actually, in fact, Matsu. Matsu's mind was connected to his by telepathic ability. She couldn't explain it though, but she always enjoyed to do technological things, like she likes to interact with electronic devices like computers, and she was very skilled in that. And from that moment, they actually became good friends. They had so much in common about science and building things. And he even showed her pictures about Cybertron, like a whole planet made of metal, and its entire population just robots. That was something about she really didn't expect it. But this friendship between Matsu and Wheeljack was actually very rocky at first because even though Matsu didn't want at first didn't believe that he was actually an alien robot and that she first believed that he was some sort of government project that had escaped. But naturally convinced her that he even wasn't that. So their friendship started quite easily afterwards. They actually met from time to time. But there was something about him that she couldn't explain it though. Because they even communicated between each other when she was even at her own home. This telepathic ability, she was able to connect with Wheeljack even when he was outside town in an old factory. They were talking while she was perhaps just laying on her bed and talking to him, but telepathically way somehow about his days and what happened to her days like that. But there was something about him that she couldn't even explain though. She felt connected to him. His, she couldn't even explain this connection. Perhaps there was perhaps it was after this first connection she had with him after that she tried. But there was something about him. He was never in a bad mood or anything, but she couldn't even explain it though. But in her mind, there was something about him that drew her attention. But suddenly, a few days after that they had been first meeting, their friends suddenly stopped talking about this strange car because it never appeared again in town. But there were one of their friends did mention that this car perhaps was used on government project and maybe there was the government was testing new type of self-driving cars and they succeeded and they just dropped and take the car and took the car with back with to do some more testing or something like that. So she didn't have to explain more about her meeting with this strange alien robot. Even she did explain or told them about this, they probably even believe her. So she preferred not telling anyone about her meeting with Wheeljack. But there was some day that when all of this would change. There was this big accident. There was this bridge in town that had collapsed, and the fire department and the others could not even approach it because of the bridge has collapsed. But the strange part, the dangerous part, there were still some cars on the other part of the bridge, and that part was about to collapse. And if they didn't do anything fast, they would have had a lot more casualties. And Matsu was actually nearby when she heard about this. She wanted to help, but she realized maybe that Wheeljack could help. But doing so, it would expose him as his true nature. She did contact him about this, and she tried to convince him not to come into town, but he could not stand to see innocent life to be harmed. So he drove as fast as he could into town. When he was nearby this little bridge, he transformed and jumped into water and ran as fast as he could to the bridge. The bystanders from both sides were just terrified. Even people in the cars when saw this huge robot running towards the bridge, but suddenly stopped and lifted. He then used some laser and somehow temporarily repaired the bridge long enough, and he explained to the people in the cars to stay inside and he will take them over to the other side. And he picked two cars at a time over the other side. And after the last cars had been left, the bridge collapsed. And the people cheering from both sides of his hero act. And the people in the cars now was not terrified, realized that this robot actually saved their lives from being put in as casualties. And the firefighters also were very curious and more about this robot. But when he approached, they all started cheering for him. And he said, I only did this for helping. I cannot stand to see others be harmed. And after that day, Wheeljack became a very public known hero in town. He in fact started helping repair the bridge once again, but this time he made some modifications so that the bridge could stand an earthquake up to scale 9 in Richter scale, which is one of the strongest. And he even helped the mayor in town to make some improvements on the buildings in town so they can survive from fires, any other type of natural disasters. And people in town always wanted to have a photograph or perhaps an autograph from him. He didn't mind to help others because it was in his nature to help others in need. Ubato further sometimes after that he became a public hero. Matsu, she was just happy to know that public was actually accepting him as a hero. She was terrified that the government would have captured him and taken him away for do some studying on him. But there were actually some scientists that he allowed to do some studying on him, like how he works and who built him, or some more technical stuff. But after some time, he actually started to spend more time with Matsu. Even they spent time perhaps in town or in the old factory, which now has been almost restored as his new home. But about that time we they spent together, Matsu had explained to him that there was something about that she felt attracted to. She felt if that they were meant to meet, like if they were meant to meeting at first place, like if there was like soulmates. But she then laughed and said that he probably would not even able to express love, laughter, kindness, or any of those basic emotions. But he explained that his kind is able to express feelings. And after all this, that meant that he even explained to her that he was willing to go out with her on a date, which did surprise her, but they were a few places that they couldn't even go to. But they chose to have their first date in a cinema drive-through, which actually was really exciting from both. And even Matsu for now has started to get some more feelings for Wheeljack. She actually enjoyed his company. He somehow made her laugh, and they actually shared a lot of things in common. And she thought maybe it was a good idea to at least give it a try to date him. And her idea for dating Wheeljack was actually something that she never regretted. For that moment, after their first date, they had so much like in common. So much in common, and they loved each other so deeply. But even when this relationship came out to the public, she were expecting most of her friends were not approving it. They were actually very shocked hearing that she had been dating Wheeljack. But after learning that they have both had so much in common, so both actually decided maybe this. They all thought maybe it was best to let them to be it for themselves. And after seeing how much Matsu is really happy to be with Wheeljack, and they were actually quite happy to see that she is happy. And after been dating for about nearly 4 years, Wheeljack had read much about the Japanese culture, and even though that Matsu wasn't even considered to be as human being or born in Japan or like other people are, but he did consider her as Japanese person, and he then had actually read something about a proposal system. He had planned to marry Matsu, but there was just one problem. He had no idea if it was even possible for him to even get married with Matsu in the first place. But After he looked up and even asked around if there were any priests or anything that could have performed the ceremony, there was actually one that was willing to do so. And he then kept this all as a secret. He later took with Matsu to the park, or well, at least nearby the park when they talked, and then he asked her if she wanted to get married with him. She was really surprised, and but she said yes, actually. And they even got married only about 2 weeks later in a traditional Japanese wedding, at least as traditional as was possible. After they went on a road trip for about a week as a honeymoon. But when they came back, Matsu started working as she normally did, and Wheeljack. He still worked for the city to help to repair some damages or perhaps even help to restore or improving the city's structures. But after being married for about 5 years, they wanted to have a family of their own. They decided to adopt some children from a local orphanage. They adopted two siblings, a boy by the name Akito and a daughter by the name Miku. Miku was still very happy to have a family, even that she was very shy to talking and spending time with her parents. Akito, though, he is a very energetic and he was very outspoken. He loved to have a robot as a father, and he loved to spend time with his family, even though they all were differently. But Miku later then actually accepted, or but get more. She got used to have a father as a being a robot. After hearing so many stories about how he has saved the city from when the bridge collapsed and how he has saved other few events, they both started to love both their parents so much. And for Matsu, she never had expected to have been fall in love with Wheeljack in the first place. For her, this was something very unique event. She'd have really had some hopes one day to be able to get married and have her own family. Even that she didn't expect when it would happen, but were meeting someone unique or very different compared to many other guys that she had seen or dated before. But this one was something that she really enjoyed. She loves Wheeljack more than anything. And Wheeljack, well, he is very excited to have Matsu as a wife. But he didn't expect to even get married or have had someone to be with. Because for millions of years, he had been single and always in a constant battle against the enemy Septicons. But now, since he's the only one of his kind on Earth in different Earth, but being married with Matsu and having two children with her, it is more than that they ever can expect it. He was really excited, but most of all happy to have been married with Matsu. Even Matsu herself was very happy to be married, to be with Wheeljack. Both were so overjoyed to be with the one they loved the most, and their love for each other only grew stronger for each single day. And this is how Matsu and Wheeljack on a true love got a family together. The end.